everyone, and welcome to the Sharper Edge podcast with Betty Parker. I'm happy you decided to stop by again this week to see what we're talking about. You know, the focus of this podcast every week is to deal with some type of people issue. As we try to traverse this life, we are faced with all kinds of challenges. And so my hope is to bring those challenges forward, and especially with a guest who has some expertise in a particular topic we'll be talking about. And I have a wonderful guest today that's going to talk with us about parenting. And as we talk through some of the challenges we face, the other part of this that I try to achieve is solutions. So not just to bring up the issues, but how do you resolve some of the things that we're talking about? And I invite your input as well. So make sure as you are listening, you're taking some notes, and then you'll share your comments in the comment section, your very respectful comments in the comment section. So without delaying any further, I want to welcome to this episode of The Sharper Edge, Ms. Kathy Miller, who we call a parenting strategist because of her many years of experience working with children and with parents. And she's going to help us navigate this hard work of parenting today. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm happy that you had time, just a little bit of time to give to us today, because I know somebody's going to be blessed by what you have to share. So, Kathy, just give us a little bit of background on you. Why are you qualified to come to talk to us today about parenting?
Well, the biggest reason that I'm qualified to talk about parenting is because I have been promoted. I am now a grandparent and I have 3 grandsons. So I know whenever people see me in this setting, they always wonder, why is she wearing a tiara? Well, and why does it have 3 different stones on it? It's because each one represents Caden, Camden, and Jace, my 3 grandsons. So I feel like the fact that I made it out of parenting without being in orange, without having the news at my house or yellow tape, that is what qualifies me, because I made it to being promoted.
Amen. I love that. You got that natural promotion that forces all of us, right? If anybody's blessed enough, first of all, to have children, and then to have their children have children, and you get to go through a couple of generations, you have learned a lot and survived a lot through that process. I totally get it. Totally get it.
But for the people who need to know my professional background, I will share with you that I have a bachelor's degree. I founded a school in 2001 in my home with just my son, Joshua, who was 3 at the time. And the school grew over 18 years into being a fully accredited Christian school through the South Carolina Independent School Association. And upon retirement in 2019, I did an acquisition with the local ministry. We were serving 0 to 3rd grade. And so I know that you guys are going to be shocked, but I've worked with families for almost 42 years. Families and children has been my life work. And so between the school and just working with families and children, that has really turned into what my life work has been. And it has been truly a joy, because just like you said, Betty, one thing about parenting is hard work, HARD, and it's also heart work, HEART. Because if you've ever been a parent, and even if you weren't a biological parent that carried a child, all of us in some shape, form, or fashion have had the opportunity to shape and mold the life of a child. Mm-hmm. And you always find out about it. Every time I do a training, I facilitate a training or a workshop, I ask the people in the room, who impacted you the most? And although it'll be parents, there's always that Sunday school teacher or that coach or someone that impacted their lives. So this is not just for parents that are in the trenches. This is for all of us, because one thing about parenting, it's a community. You
Mhm.
need a community. You need a village and you need a tribe. Just like the African proverb says that it takes a village to
Mhm.
raise a child. And I
Absolutely.
wholeheartedly subscribe to that.
All right. Well, listen, 40 plus years of, working with children. And of course, when you work with children, you automatically pick up the parents too. So
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen your fair share of good parenting techniques and some that really, have some room for development. And I know you work with parents in helping them to find ways to manage their children better, manage themselves better as they go through the difficulties of parenting. And so, to your point, whether these children have been birthed by the mothers and fathers themselves, or if they've adopted them or acquired them in some way, sometimes we have family members raising other family members' children. And maybe it's none of that. Maybe it's just the impact an adult has had as a teacher in the school systems or somewhere in churches, wherever. We all could benefit from knowing how to deal with children. And so I know a lot of times we don't do it right. And so you've seen it all, Kathy. And I want to just kind of talk a little bit. Maybe you can help somebody along the way who might feel like they are at their wits' end trying to, manage this whole all aspects of life. We got the kids, we got work, we got the kids that are in all kinds of after school programs. We got the kids that, they having trauma or tantrums. I want to say not necessarily trauma, but tantrums. And we're just trying to pull it all together and have some type of stability in our lives. But we fall short at times.
We
So
do.
yeah, so talk to me. I wanted to, you had mentioned before, when we were just talking before the episode started, you were talking a little bit about parents really needing to figure out what their specific parenting style is going to be. Expand on that for me a little bit. What do you mean by that?
So, what I mean by that is oftentimes we either parent our children the exact way we were parented, good, bad, or indifferent, or we parent them the exact opposite, good, bad, or indifferent. But here's the real truth: you're not your parent, your children are not you. So you're dealing with two totally different temperaments. As the parent, regardless of who walks on the scene, regardless of who is coaching you, giving you advice, strategies, whatever, at the end of the day, I want to be clear with parents. You are the expert when it comes to your child. You're the expert because you know your child better than anybody else. Now, whether you're willing to acknowledge it and admit it, because sometimes we like to act like, ooh, that my child would never. Take that out your vocabulary, because
Yes, they will.
They would, and they will.
And they do.
And they do.
Mhm.
But I think for me, one of the first things I like to establish with parents is the fact that you are your child's first and most influential teacher. Whether you feel competent to do that or not, you've had them, they're your children. That makes you competent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other side of that, we have to find what I like to call the sweet spot. That is based on your temperament, based on what your goals are, your values. Every parent, even when they first find out that they're expectant, they already start dreaming about the things that their children will do, what that addition will do for the family, who they'll be, what they'll become. But before we get to any of that, you as a parent have to find what is your parenting style. What is it that you want when your children are grown and gone? What is it that you want to have imparted in them based on your beliefs, your values, and your experiences? And I think that that's very important, because oftentimes we don't see ourselves as the driver with the car seat in the back being our child. We see ourselves from the child in the car seat and our parents being the driver. But this is your opportunity to parent your child the way that you feel is necessary. and what you feel is more in line with who you are. Your parent may have been a yeller and yelled all the time. That may have been traumatic for you. You may decide that I'm not going to be a yeller. I'm going to talk to my children. I'm going to explain. I meet parents all the time who say, my children are very affectionate. I didn't grow up in an affectionate home. So it's taken me some getting used to when they need to hug and love and all of those things. And at this point, Betty, I would just like to also encourage parents to grab a copy of the book by Gary Chapman. It's called The 5 Love Languages. And the 5 love languages, they have it for adults, for children, and for teenagers. The 5 love languages don't change, but I feel like for parents, it's important for them to know their own love language and to learn the love language of their children, because you may be doing something that you feel like you're showing them love. They're not reciprocating it because that's not their love language. So it really does take some adjusting, and it definitely takes more than because I said so. Do what I say,
right?
What I do, and think what I tell you to think.
Right.
We are long past the ages of the Flintstones.
Right.
We're raising the next generation. And so it's so important for us to provide them the tools and to give voice to things that they may not have language for at this time.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you should bring up Gary Chapman and his book, because my daughter, who is now 22 years old, almost, she'll be 23 in the summer. She actually, she asked me what my love language is. She's very much in tune with her own, and mine is words of affirmation. So she makes sure that whenever she gifts me with things, or even just in our interactions, that she'll say things like, I know that your love language is words of affirmation. So she'll tell me something great, right? She'll tell me how good of a job I'm doing as a parent, or something that uplifts me, especially if she thinks I'm having a tough day. So you're right. If we can start even instilling that in our children at a young age, so they'll understand how to treat people the way those people want to be treated, right? And even be able to voice for themselves to their parents how they want to be treated. I know that might sound foreign to some people, because to your point just now, people think that parenting is you just tell the kid what to do. They're the child. You're not their friend. So you don't have to listen to anything they say. But that's not necessarily the most appropriate way to handle it. Yes, there are lines that need to be drawn to establish the parent from the child. But by the same token, you don't shut the child out to a point where they don't know how to voice their opinions. They don't know how to advocate for themselves. They don't know how to express themselves, or the feelings, or what their thoughts are. So now what you have done is just created this little person who just follows, and they never really learn how to lead, because we haven't opened up an avenue for them to take a lead even in their own lives. We can guide them. Don't you agree? You can kind of guide kids to know when to follow, but also when to step up when it's appropriate.
Because even as adults, we have to know when to follow, when to lead, and when to serve. Those are 3 things that you're constantly doing in your everyday life. And if we always have the answers for our children, what about when we're not there? What about when they don't want to ask us? We have not. I laugh all the time and say, I'm working on my retirement plan with my children, because I need to know that they're going to take care of me and not put me in a nursing home where the people stand outside and smoke with oxygen on.
Oh my gosh.
So when I tell you, I'm trying to teach them everything I possibly can.
Right.
Build a relationship with them. What happens is we have a dictatorship. That's not a parenting style.
Right.
We have the doormat. That's not the style. It has to be relational. Parenting is not transactional. It's not, I tell you, you do it. It's relational. I need to even hear you, because children they think about a lot of stuff that they may not always be able to put voice to. That's why we have to help them out, even with social emotional. I can't talk. That's a whole nother segment about talking about their social emotional intelligence, because it follows them. How many people have worked in a setting where you're working with adults but 7-year-olds have tantrums. You 40 plus years, you really about to have a breakdown about that?
Mm-hmm.
That is because somewhere along the way, their social emotional intelligence wasn't dealt with. They weren't taught about managing their emotions and being
Right.
able to put words to it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
upset. I'm mad. I don't feel like all of the things. So it's really time out in the parenting world for archaic parenting. We've got to be talking to them and relating to them developmentally at a developmentally appropriate age.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to start talking to them and them getting used to talking to us. And as children get older, we also have to learn how to look like we know how to play poker. Because sometimes they're going to say stuff and you're going to want to drop your whole face. And you're going to have to be able to hold it in the road in a very non-judgmental way. And sometimes you're going to have to go back to that conversation. Sometimes you're going to just have to put a pin in it right there and be like, we'll talk more about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Listen, so what you're describing, a lot of people, I think, grapple with, as parents. We don't always know, what's the appropriate thing at particular times, especially when we are trying to juggle so many other things. We might be coming home from a rough day at work, and maybe some crazy stuff has happened after work. Got to go pick up the kids. We're late, we're rushed, we're fatigued. The kid is having a rough time, in terms of their behavior. So now we don't have the energy to give to this kid. And so we either snap at that child, which is an inappropriate response, or we just let that child have their way, which is also an inappropriate response. So is there something or some means of parents learning what to do in some of the most volatile times they might face? Is there some type of program that they could turn to that you're familiar with? And that you could recommend to parents? And I know you're in a different area. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. You're
Yes.
up in the upstate, and not everything is available everywhere. But just tell me what kind of resources you can recommend.
Well, one of the resources that I could recommend is Triple P. It's called the Positive Parenting Program. It's an international program. So a parent could find out in their local area about Triple P practitioners. There are different levels of Triple P. There is like a seminar where you're in with a group of other parents. There's also a group, and then there's also what is called standard, which is one-on-one, where you work one-on-one with a parent. And Triple P provides a toolbox of strategies for parents, for families. It was based out of some clinical research in Australia, Queensland, Australia. It's over 40 years of research. And so the Triple P, or the Positive Parenting Program, is definitely an option for families and for parents. And they're able to just look up Triple P or the Positive Parenting Program, and they'll be able to find out about practitioners in their area. Also, there's different modalities that Triple P is offered in. Some are hybrid, some are in person, and some are strictly virtual, because we live in a more virtual world. So after the pandemic, there's been some shifting in terms of the modality to make it accessible to parents. One of the things I would also encourage parents to do is, like you mentioned, sometimes things are just completely out of control. And I think the best thing to do is to have a timeout. And what that means is when you get home, everybody goes to their room, to their quarters. If it's 30 minutes, if it's an hour, everybody needs that time to really settle in.
Yes.
And just pull it on in, whatever, because then you're teaching your children self-care. You're teaching them self-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that 30 minutes tops, 30 minutes minimum, an hour tops, gives everybody a chance to come in, kick off your shoes, take off. And again, things are either taught or they're caught. We want to teach. We want to model for them. Because if you cuss and fuss and raise sand and yell all day and twice on Sunday, ain't no need to go to the school and talk about what your child doing and you don't see it at home. No, you can't see it at home because you're too busy being it at home.
Mm.
And so I remember when I had my school over those 18 years, I had a kid that cursed fluently at 3. And the mom wanted to talk to me about, I said, we don't teach cussing. That's not one of the things we teach. But what your child told us is that they play Fortnite all night with their older siblings. You may want to go back to what's going on in your home.
Right. Right.
And
that's
so,
the biggest thing that I think parents can do is some self-reflection.
Yes.
and some examination of their own environment, because I know teachers get a really bad rap from a lot of these parents as if the teachers are the ones that are influencing their child the most, but they're turning a blind eye on themselves and what's happening in their own households. They're holding teachers responsible for things that they ought to be doing as parents.
And I will share with you at this point, I also authored a book, and it's what I believe to my core. And that is that every child is a story yet untold. And that book is self-reflective. It is an opportunity for parents to journal, to look at some different things in terms of mental health and wellness, self-care, leadership. There are about 10 chapters in the book. It's a small book, 72 pages, and it's 10 chapters. But it gives parents the opportunity to self-reflect, because the key to any and everything is self-awareness. And that's what a lot of people lack. We see it every day, all day, and twice on Sunday. Yep. And so I agree wholeheartedly with you about the self-reflection, because sometimes it forces us to have to look in the mirror and not just pass by and be like, oh, okay, I'm good. It causes you to do this. And you have to sit with it. And so I do think that that is huge, is self-reflection. Because
what's the name? I'm sorry, what's the name of your book again, and where could they pick it up if they wanted to come?
So the name of my book is Every Child is a Story Yet Untold. And it's available for purchase on my website. And I will provide all of that information, but it is edenconsulting.solutions. But you'll have that information so that you can share it, link it in. But the name of the book is Every Child is a Story Yet Untold. And we get to help them write the story. You know, just like they used to say back in the day, I can say back in the day now because I'm old enough. But back in the day, they used to say, however much sunshine and however much rain. Like, it's almost like this is your blank canvas. So however much sunshine and however much rain depends on what you planted and what you couldn't call for crop failure. Because whatever a man sows, you're going to reap it. So if your kids live in a very hostile, traumatic environment, sometimes people are in situations that they have to navigate their way out of. So this is very non-judgmental, what I'm saying. But what I'm also saying is just be prepared that there's going to be some course correction that's going to have to take place. And there's going to have to be some damage control. And there's also going to be some having to accept responsibility for some things and be able to work around it. Because the truth of the matter is we do real life in real time. And we can't go back and change what we did a second ago. But there is a way to try to course correct and to be able to give some credence to whatever that thing was, to let it not be a loss, but to be a learning experience.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I wonder where the age limit is where you can no longer course correct, because I think about a lot of down here in Columbia, one of the things that's been unfortunately creeping up and actually, I don't know, it might not even be creeping up. It might already be at its peak or its time of the greatest amount of volatility is the way teenagers are interacting with each other. So we have these issues where, these kids, they don't know, like you say, how to manage their emotions. They don't know how to self-regulate, maintain composure. When they get upset, they fight.
Yeah.
And they'll take that fight in the streets. They want to go out in one of the shopping areas we have here. They're talking about doing takeovers and stuff. Fights are going to come out of that. And now they're actually using real weapons, not just their fists. So we've got, at some point down the road, should have been able to teach these kids at a very young age, when you get upset about something, you don't have to do this to get your point across. You use your mind, you think it through, you verbalize how you're feeling, and then you learn how to talk through some things rather than just fight. And so we're having these struggles now because I think from a parenting standpoint, those things had not been addressed when those children were younger.
It had not been addressed, and we are also seeing the direct result that social media has had on our children and on our families. And so they're playing video games, just like I mentioned about the 3-year-old who is now 13 years old, playing Fortnite at 3. So for the last decade, this kid has been playing Fortnite. They play with guns. They do all of that. And they're unable sometimes because their brains aren't developed.
Mm-hmm.
And the rewiring that takes place with social media, we don't know what all is wired in social media. We know that it's a dopamine. We know that it gives people charge. We know that people pick it up and go down a rabbit hole and can't put it back down. You're talking about children whose brains are still developing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they think that it's cool to have a gun. And I think that teen violence is at an all-time high across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And to see children that when you ask teenagers, what do they want to be when they grow up? And they're telling you they probably won't live past 21.
Yeah.
In the area that I live in, we had a 7-month-old that, because a house was shot up in retaliation, a 7-month-old lost their life because bullets struck the house. And so that we're at an all-time, it's an epidemic.
Yeah.
It's beyond just being a cold. This is pneumonia, what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
And so that's even why it's so important for parents to kind of boot up and strap up and be able to, some things are going to be new to the parents. I find that all the time in workshops, trainings, parenting sessions that I do with parents. It's new to them because it wasn't explained to them like that. But at some point, someone has to be the one to say, that's it, no more. This is not going to be the trajectory of our family.
Because Kathy, you said people need to parent on purpose.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I like that because you were talking about, as you mentioned earlier, that the parents are going to be the first teachers of that child. So when you're talking about them parenting on purpose and teaching their children, what exactly, if you had to give a parent at least 2 things that they needed to make a priority in terms of what they're teaching their children, what would be those 2 top things you would recommend?
If I had to give a parent 2 top things that they would need to do for their children, one is realize that you are your child's first and most influential teacher. I don't care if you dropped out of school in 5th grade. You are still your child's first and most influential teacher. And you are the one who is responsible for teaching them how to navigate the world in which they live, because they have never, ever lived in this world before. And they're looking to you for guidance, for cues, for clues, and for answers. Number 2, the thing I would teach would want a parent to know about parenting on purpose, get to know your child, conversate, communicate, have times that you put that technology down, that the technology stays in your room at a certain time, minimizing their access, because everything is at our children's fingertips. When they start seeing violence, pornography, sex, all of the things that you don't want them to know about, we can't put them in a bubble, but we certainly can keep a little bit of childlikeness around them, because I promise you, once they start tapping into all of that, there's no point of return. And they have the rest of their lives to be adults. Create opportunities for you to make memories with your children. Making memories doesn't have to be Disney World. Making memories is setting aside a few minutes a day to spend quality time with them, not in front of the TV, not with your technology, not talking to them like this, or them or allowing them to talk to you like that. Even if you're eating fast food, come home, sit at a table. Everybody has a dining room table, and talk to them. Ask them how their day was. Don't settle for, it was okay, it was good. What was your favorite part of the day? What was it about your day that you really didn't like? Why do you think that that was so? Talk to them. Get them talking to you. Even kindergartners, even kids that are 3 and 4 can tell you about their day, because everybody has a best friend at school. So beginning that process of communicating, talking, and listening to your children is key, especially if you think you're going to be able to talk to them when they become teenagers. Because at that point, sometimes your voice doesn't mean what their friend's voice means. So you've got to establish yourself early in the game.
Absolutely. And they need to know that they can come and talk to their parents and be listened to. You know, a lot of times, you know, they're out there and they, you know, the world will offer them a cold shoulder and, you know, just kind of, I don't know, highlight their insecurities and make them feel less than. It's home where they need to come and be built up and encouraged and made to understand that they do have value, because you can't expect to get that from the outside. And if parents aren't valuing their children and trying to teach them that they have some worth, then those kids, they're not getting it at home, they're not getting it in the streets. And so who knows where and what they will attach to in order to feel, you know, the love that they might be missing, the community they might be missing, the attachment they might be missing, that we all need as human beings. You know, we are interdependent. I don't care what people say. Some folks might think, I don't need to be around people, I hate people. No, we're hardwired to be connected to another individual. You might not need 50 friends, but you're going to need at least 1 or 2 good close ones, right? If not your family. Yeah. So these are really good, Kathy, in terms of helping people to understand the importance of parenting well, and the struggles that, you know, we all have as parents. You know, I get it that people don't always feel like they have the time to learn these things. And like you've always said, and we hear it quite often, you know, parenting is not, kids don't come with an instruction manual, right? So you got to figure it out along the way. And unfortunately, if we haven't been parented well, we may be apt to repeat the same bad behaviors that our parents have taught us, or we're just fumbling around in the darkness and trying to figure it out on our own and making a lot of mistakes that we might later regret. So I like the fact that you mentioned that there are avenues that people can take, resources that they can take advantage of if they need some help with parenting. What if they wanted to talk to you directly in terms of getting some coaching or whatever? Is there an opportunity there?
It is an opportunity, and that information is also available on my website along with my phone number. It is not a Google number. It is a number that I am going to answer. And I would love to talk with a parent regarding that. I will set up and schedule a time that we can speak and just kind of get a little bit of direction for what it is. And I want to say that we talked about parenting, and we talked about parenting not necessarily the way you were parented, good, bad, or indifferent. We have to also remember that parents, a lot of times, they did the best they could based on what they knew. So even with saying that, I don't want anybody to bash their parents or feel like they didn't teach them what they needed. We have to give grace, because I don't care, even as much as you parent on purpose, when your kids become adults, it's going to be something that they felt like that you should have done differently, but it was going to be in hindsight. And so give grace. Give grace.
Mm-hmm.
People do the best they can based on what they were working with. It's just the fact of the matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just talking to a friend yesterday, and we were talking about parents telling kids what to do and how to do. And a lot of times that comes from generations past. So we're not, that's why I said we're not living in the Flintstone age.
Mm-hmm.
We're raising civic-minded leaders, people who are going to be contributors to society, because we're not going to always be this age. And we've got to get a handle on our teenagers, or as we grow old, we're going to be living in bunkers because they're going to be so out of control. But there's an opportunity for us to course correct as a people and as a community and as a society. And it starts one conversation at the time, one quality time spent at the time. Because the reason we're seeing such an influx of gangs and all of that is, to your point, kids are looking for a place to belong. And if I don't belong at home, if I'm being told you just like your daddy, you ain't gonna be no good, if I'm told all of the things that they are often told, then don't be shocked or surprised when you can't tell them nothing and they're part of a gang.
Yeah. One final point I want us to make before we get out of here, because we've spoken about this too, and I think it does bear a little bit of expansion on the conversation, is you were talking about trying to shape a child into what they have been innately given to be, and not trying to live your life through your children. Maybe you didn't accomplish a certain thing when you were growing up, and now you're trying to gain that thing through your own child, but that child is built for something else. Talk to me a little bit about where you were going with that.
So that is my big do not. That is, while I have plenty of do's, that is my number one do not.
No.
Because your child is here to fulfill whatever they were innately created to fulfill. Whether you believe, think, or not, they're hardwired to fulfill a purpose, which is why we have to parent them on purpose. The fact that growing up, I was raised in a single parent home. We had all of our necessities, but we didn't have a lot of extras. Now that I'm a generation forward, was able to go to college, be a business owner. Now I have more resources. I'm also married. So now I want my children to do all of the things that I wished I had done. So now they got a schedule that's this long, that they go here, go there, go all of that, so that you can live through them, to be able to say what they do. To stick my daughter in cheerleading when she could care less about cheerleading, she'd rather be playing softball.
Right.
Sending my kids to school so that they can have perfect attendance. That certificate is going to be for me. And that's a true story. I know of families who the children have gone on to get perfect attendance, and that certificate belonged to the mom. And now to talk to the adult children, they were like, it's so overrated. But you have to be mindful. That's why it's important to communicate, to spend quality time with your children so that you can know who they are. You can know what things matter to them. You can know what things they don't have an interest in, because our job is there's some things that we gonna have to cut off at the root, because that ain't gonna fare you well. That slick mouth is not gonna fare you well. However, it may be something that can be used later with some shaping and some pruning, that your voice, that's what's going to be used. You're going to be one to have a voice for the people who don't have a voice. But it might not be right now at 5, and it sure ain't going to be at 8. But I'm going to help you with it, and we're going to build on that. So I'm not going to just tell you to shut up, sit down, and wait till your turn. No, I'm going to help you to be able to use your voice in ways, even if it's just at the dinner table, sharing with us what some of the things are. My grandson was in 5th grade, and he went to school, and Caden had always been in a private school setting. So this was his first time going to public school. And he went to public school, and he was like, the kids just, they don't listen to the teachers, like they're talking. And now Caden didn't have no halo, and his mouth was not the Bible. But it was interesting to hear his perception of school in this setting. And so he ended up being selected to be the student body vice president in 5th grade.
Wow.
So he wanted to have a conversation with the principal. He said, I need to have a meeting with Miss Jordan to tell her about the key. I said, Caden, Miss Jordan does not need you to tell her about the kids. She's very capable. She is the principal. He said, but Granny, but I'm on the board, Granny, but I'm on the board. In his mind, he was on student council. Yeah. So he had a voice, and he had an opportunity. Now, is that a typical 5th grader? No, but he has been influenced by his grandparents and by a lot of older people. So in his mind, that's how you handle it. You don't tell the kids to hush. You go talk to.
You can't squelch that voice, though. You got to give him that space to be able to, express that. And like you said, and then the temperate, know when, right? But also to know that there is an appropriate place and time to do this, and it's accepted and invited. So I love that he stepped up at that time, and we're not doing that enough.
We're not,
as adults, period, not just parents, but as adults, to be able to shape that next generation in the most productive ways, because these are the children. I know it's trite to say this, but these children really are the future. They're the ones who are going to be leading, in the years
decisions that affect us as old people.
Yes, and in short order, because they're only going to be in school a few more years, and then boom, they're adults at 21, 22, 23. And depending on how sharp they are and how motivated they are, they could be the ones that, like you said, are making decisions about us. So you better be prepared for how you're shaping these kids.
And the one last thing that I would like to say to everyone listening is that the greatest return on an investment that an individual will ever get is investing in a child, not on a child. We love to make sure that they have all of the latest whatever, but the greatest ROI that we will ever get is by investing in the life of a child and not investing on a child.
I like it.
In the life of a child is the greatest ROI, return on your investment. Is better than crypto coins and all that stuff. You're going to get the greatest return on your investment by investing in the life of a child.
I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you so much for that, Kathy. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today, because I think you have dropped a lot of good gems on there that we can use, and certainly some resources that people who are parents can use. I think you'll get a big old hand clap from a lot of the teachers who have been trying to say this forever. You being in the position you've been in for so long, I'm sure can understand where these teachers are coming from. So hopefully we have provided something that will be useful to all of you who listen to this podcast. And I hope you'll continue to listen to this podcast. If you've missed any past episodes, please go back and listen to them, because we're here to not just highlight some of the biggest challenges of people issues, but also to bring solutions. And we love you to be a part of the conversation. So thanks for stopping by the Sharper Edge podcast and listening to us. And we invite you to come back again next week when I have yet another guest. And just drop your comments in the comment section and let us know what you think. And we appreciate you being here. Have a super, super week.